So we're in the chapter of Asara Yuchsin, talking about the different types of lineage, Jewish lineage. We have Kohanim, Leviim, Yisraelim. Those are the higher categories. And then there's other categories that were not so clear what their source is. For example, someone who we don't know who their parents are, or other people that their marriage was not according to halacha, so their kids could be a chalal or other types of yichus, other type of lineage. So today we're going to have a story starting off in a butcher shop where leads to a whole thing that happens because of an incident in the butcher shop. So the Gemara tells a story related to Shmuel's statement at the end of the last siman. We'll just remind ourselves, Shmuel said, whoever says that someone else is puzzle, if you speak bad about other people and say that they don't have a good yichus, it's because the person that's saying that, he himself has the problem, and that same specific problem. So the Gemara tells us a story. There was a certain man from Nehardea. Nehardea is one of the big cities in Bavel, and today it's in Iraq, who went into a butcher shop in Pumbedisa. So it's very important to remember these two cities. There's Nehardea and Pumbedisa. And we'll see soon why that's important, but he's going to a butcher shop in Pumbedisa.
Where is Pumbedisa?
So it's another city in Bavel. We have here a map. That's why I brought it here. I circled Nehardea is in the middle. Pumbedisa is a little bit up there. You could pass it around. So these are two cities in Bavel. So this guy from Nehardea is going to the butcher shop in Pumbedisa. He said to them, "Give me meat." Very polite. They said to him, "Wait until the attendant of Rabbi Yehuda bar Yecheskel, who is standing there, takes his meat first, and then we will give you yours." You got to wait in line. What are you pushing? He said, "Who is Yehuda bar Shaviskel, that he should precede me and take before me?" So this is a big offense, because Rabbi Yehuda that we're talking about here, he was the Rosh Yeshiva of Pumbedisa. And this person that doesn't have patience, he's calling Yehuda bar Yecheskel, instead of by his father's real name Yecheskel, he's calling him Yehuda bar Shaviskel. So he's calling a name to the Rosh Yeshiva. And let's see what Shaviskel means. The Nehardin mockingly called him Yehuda bar Shaviskel instead of Rabbi Yehuda bar Yecheskel, because bar Shaviskel means one who eats roast, that is a glutton. So this is a big offense. So this is, I think it's called Paras, or we would call it maybe the Persian Gulf, or this area. It's close to like Iran and Iraq, that area. So what's happening over here? This person is waiting for his meat, and they say, "Wait, you have to wait before the servant of Yehuda bar Yecheskel gets the meat." And this person says, "Well, why do we have to wait for Yehuda bar Shaviskel?" Saying that Yehuda is this gluttonous person that just wants meat. Meanwhile, he's the Rosh Yeshiva. And they went and told Rabbi Yehuda what this man had said. Rabbi Yehuda took offense and excommunicated him, because someone who disparages a Torah scholar should be excommunicated. So this is a big chutzpah. Yeah. Now the question is, what was this guy thinking? Why did he think that he should be ahead? First of all, just in general, you have to wait your turn. And why was he calling him this name? So we'll have to get to that later. They said to Rabbi Yehuda, this guy habitually calls people slaves. Rabbi Yehuda proclaimed that the Nehardin was a slave himself. And that follows what we just learned. Since the Nehardin accused others of being slaves, it can be assumed that the Nehardin himself was a slave. This assumption accords with Shmuel's observation that one who attributes a blemish to others, he has the same blemish himself. So now Rabbi Yehuda not only put him in cherem, not only excommunicated him, but said that this person is an eved, he's a slave. Now this person is not going to sit quiet, he makes trouble. Thereupon that man went and summoned Rabbi Yehuda to a lawsuit in front of Rav Nachman in Nehardea. So this person, again, he was from Nehardea, and he went to the butcher shop in Pumbedisa. So now he goes to his rabbi in Nehardea, and he says he wants Rabbi Yehuda to come to court, to come to Beis Din in front of Rav Nachman. So we have here one rabbi summoning another rabbi to court. A Sabina was delivered to Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda went before Rav Huna to ask him what to do. It means he's asking a question, should he go to the other rabbi? What's the question? Rabbi Yehuda said to him, should I go before Rav Nachman's court or should I not go? So why would he not? What would be the reason not to go? Let's look at footnote 6. It's a shlep, but you get a Sabina, you get an invitation to court, you should go. So it says here, Rav Yehuda was a greater scholar than Rav Nachman, as well as being the rabbinic leader of Pumbedisa. So if you imagine you have one Rosh Yeshiva, and he is being summoned to a different rabbi in a different city, does he have to go? And he is a bigger Torah scholar.
What's the word for Sabina in Hebrew?
So in Hebrew it would be Hazmana. The word over here is Azmane, yes. Like Zimun, also, like you get ready to bench, so you're inviting Rabbi Simon and benching. And the law is that the judges of a court cannot force a Torah scholar who is greater than they to appear before them. So he is the greater rabbi.
That leaves room for a lot of corruption.
Yeah. Now, hence, even though Rav Nachman was the rabbinic leader of Nehardea, a judge appointed by the exilarch and a son-in-law of the Nasi, Rabbi Yehuda did not have to heed the summons. That's why he himself wasn't sure if he has to go. So we have here two rabbis here. We have the rabbi of Nehardea and the rabbi of Pumbedisa, and one is summoning the other one. The Rav Nachman is summoning Rabbi Yehuda to come. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda, he discusses this with Rav Huna. Rav Huna said to him, really, you're not required to go, because you are a great man, and you are even greater than Rav Nachman. Nevertheless, for the sake of the honor of the office of the Nasi, arise and go. So Rav Nachman, besides for being a Rosh Yeshiva, he was also the son-in-law of the Nasi, of the leader in general. He's like the president. So because of that honor, because of that level and rank that Rav Nachman had, it would be respectful for Rabbi Yehuda to go, even though he does not need to go because he's a greater Torah scholar. Since Rav Nachman is the Nasi's son-in-law, failure to obey his summons would be seen as an insult to the Nasi himself. So he decides to go. So Rabbi Yehuda now has to schlep, like he said, he has to go all the way from Pumbedisa, the Rosh Yeshiva, and he has to go to Nehardea, where Rav Nachman is. Rabbi Yehuda took Rav Huna's advice and went to Rav Nachman. Now here, there's going to be a very interesting conversation and clash. Asa ashkechei de ka'avid Micah. Rabbi Yehuda came and found Rav Nachman building a fence. And we know there's a mitzvah of Micah. If you have a roof or a flat area where someone could fall off, you're supposed to build a fence. So Rabbi Yehuda finds Rav Nachman building a fence. So Rabbi Yehuda said to him, does not master agree with that Rav Huna bar Idi said in the name of Shmuel? Once a man is appointed a leader of the community, he is forbidden to do menial labor before 3 or more people. So why are you building a fence? You don't have anyone to help you build a fence. You're the Rosh Yeshiva. You're a leader. Once a man is appointed, it is demeaning to the people to subjugate to a leader who does not have anyone to do his menial labor. So this is the first attack. So Rabbi Yehuda is being summoned. He sees Rav Nachman doing something, and he attacks him. And he says, what are you doing? Why are you working? You shouldn't be doing this. Reb Nachman said to him, I am making only a small gunderisa. That was the word that he used. I'm just making a small fence. Well, what's the big deal? Reb Yehuda replied to him, is it so hateful to say makeh, which is written in the Torah, to mean fence, or mechitza, which is used by the rabbis to mean fence? You could choose your language. Either speak in the words of Torah, which is makeh, or mechitza. Why do you say gunderisa, which is from a foreign language? You're a Rosh Yeshiva. You should be speaking in the language of Torah. Why are you using these interesting language of Gunderisa? Okay, so that was the first or second attack. Rabbi Yehuda is attacking Rav Nachman. Meanwhile, Rav Nachman is summoning Rabbi Yehuda. They forget about that for a while. Now, there's another thing that happens. Rav Nachman said to him, now Rav Nachman says to Rabbi Yehuda, let master take a seat on the karfita, on the bench. Rabbi Yehuda replied to him, is it so hateful to say itztiba, which is used by the rabbis to mean bench, or safsal, which is used by ordinary people to mean bench? Again, he's using this strange language. Why are you not using the common language? What's this karfita? Why don't you say the words of the rabbis, or at least what regular people use? Okay, the next thing. Rabbi Yehuda is just going on him, on Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said to him, let my master have some esrog to eat. It doesn't say that it was sukkos, or probably if it wasn't sukkos, he wouldn't be eating the esrog. But for some reason, he's offering him to eat an esrog. But he doesn't say esrog, he says esronga. He puts a nun in there, esronga. Rabbi Yehuda replied, thus said Shmuel, anyone who says esronga when referring to an esrog is 1/3 of haughty spirit. It's a gaiva. There's some gaiva in there. There's some arrogance. He should either say esrog, as the rabbis call it, or esroga, as ordinary people speak. So this is very puzzling that Rav Nachman is choosing these strange ways of saying things. He keeps on he calls a fence a gunderisa, then he calls a karfita, a chair a karfita.
You would understand that the language he's talking?
He understands.
Like he's building supplement.
Yeah.
And he's going to give it,
I think he's going to attack the word that was used, shavisko.
See, that was the first, but that wasn't even him. That wasn't Rav Nachman. That was the
Yeah, I know, but if I was preparing a defense for the guy...
So, but this is Rabbi Yehuda doing it, the person that was summoned to Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman, he's the leader
Rav
of...
Nachman is saying the unusual words.
Yes.
So I think Rav Nachman is building a case...
for this guy.
For the defendant, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
For the plaintiff, excuse me.
Okay, let's see how it plays out. So we have this thing that Shmuel said, that whoever says esronga is 1/3 of haughty spirit. And that's something we also have to look into. What is this 1/3 of haughty spirit? It's either you're a balgaiva or not. What's this, a third of a gaiva? You're a third of a balgaiva. You ever heard someone tell you that? So again, he says you're not using, either say esrog or esroga. What is this esronga? So it says it is on account of arrogance that he speaks differently than others to make himself sound superior to them. So this is what Rabbi Yehuda is saying against Rav Nachman.
They haven't gotten down to business.
No, they didn't even get down to business. This is all just from meeting. Yeah, this is the greeting. Okay, we're not done yet. Rav Nachman said to him, okay, after inviting him to eat a esrog, let's go to the next thing. Let master drink an anbabga. Anbabga. What is anbabga? A revius-sized cup typically used to hold a drink called asparagus. And it's brought in the Gemara Brachos that people would drink this in the morning for medicinal purposes.
Diuretic.
Yeah, probably.
A cup of orange juice.
So Rabbi Yehuda again has a complaint. Rabbi Yehuda replies to him, is it so hateful to say asparagus, as the rabbis call it, or anpakpika, the common term for revius-sized cup as ordinary people speak? And he says again, why are you using this funny word anbabga? Why don't you just call it asparagus or anpika, which is more common that people use? So we see over here that time and time again, Rav Nachman is using a different language. It's a third language. It's not what the rabbis speak. It's not what the Torah speaks. Not what people speak. It's just his own type of language. Okay, next part of the story. Rav Nachman said to him, let Donag, Rav Nachman's daughter, come and serve us something to drink. Now he's bringing in his daughter. His daughter's name was Donag. Rav Yehuda replied to him, thus said Shmuel, it is forbidden to make use of a woman, so that she does not become accustomed to associate with men. So he's not even allowing, Rabbi Yehuda is not allowing Rav Nachman's daughter to serve him. And Rav Nachman said to him, but she is a minor. She's not even, maybe she's not even bas mitzvah, or we don't know exactly how old she is. Nevertheless, said Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel explicitly said it is forbidden to make any use of a woman whatsoever, whether she is an adult or a minor.
What's the word for Isha? Okay.
Isha. Ben Gedola, Ben Ketana, whether she is older or young. Okay, so again, Rabbi Yehuda is attacking Rav Nachman. Next part of the story. Rav Nachman said to him, would Master like to send a greeting to Yalta? Yalta was Rav Nachman's wife. He's suggesting to Rabbi Yehuda if he wants to send a greeting to his wife. That's a very interesting idea. Rabbi Yehuda replied to him, thus said Shmuel. Every time we quote Shmuel, Shmuel was really the big Rosh Yeshiva before, and both Rav Nachman and Rabbi Yehuda were students of Shmuel. So Shmuel is very important, and every time we quote Shmuel, he says, thus said Shmuel, the voice of a woman is considered provocative. Therefore, I may not greet her, for she will respond, and I will hear her voice. This is a very strong statement. It sounds like you're not allowed to even greet a woman, but this is not common practice at all. So there's a very big discussion in halacha and what this Gemara means. Usually we know that we're not supposed to listen to a woman singing, but over here it's just a greeting. It says here the voice of a woman in general, and he's just greeting her. So there's a lot of discussion. It says over here, Rabbi Yehuda didn't really know his wife, so it would be kind of like if you know someone, and it would just be a regular, normal thing to greet a woman or a host. But over here, Rabbi Yehuda didn't really know Yalta. So Rabbi Yehuda is admonishing Rav Nachman for even offering that he should send a greeting to his wife. I'm just trying to think why Rav Nachman would even think after he just told him about his daughter. So Rav Nachman said, it is possible to send your greeting through a messenger, and then you will not hear her voice. So instead of greeting her directly, why don't you send it through a messenger? Rabbi Yehuda,
Talk to my wife, please.
Rabbi Yehuda replied to him, again, thus said Shmuel, one is not allowed to extend greetings to a woman, even when one communicates to a woman through a third party. They might form an emotional attachment that could lead to intimacy. So Rabbi Yehuda is very, very strict over here. Very, anything connected to either a woman serving or greeting, even through a messenger, Rabbi Yehuda is like, no, no, no. Then Rav Nachman, he persists. Rav Nachman said, but you could send a greeting through her husband. That is, I can relay your greetings to her.
Oh, wait, she's a minor and she's married.
No. So this is someone else. There's Donag. Donag is his daughter, but Yalta is Rav Nachman's wife.
Okay.
So now he's offering that Rav Nachman could send a greeting to his wife on behalf of Rabbi Yehuda.
Yehuda following Shmuel like Shammai, the same two rabbis that had different courts.
So both Rav Nachman and Rabbi Yehuda are both students of Shmuel. That's why whatever Shmuel says, like that's the way it goes. So he's like saying, we know that Shmuel said this. So Rabbi Yehuda says, no. He says, thus said Shmuel, one is not allowed to extend greeting to a woman at all, even through her husband. Even in this case, greetings are forbidden because they might cause her to habitually think of him.
No small ego there.
So Rabbi Yehuda is really, really hitting Rav Nachman hard over here. And everything that he says, he just takes out a Shmuel and says, you're not following what Shmuel says. Now Yalta mixes in, and we know from the Gemara that Yalta was a very powerful. She was a very powerful woman, and it says that they would carry her. They would have a special seat for her next to Rav Nachman or somewhere there in the Beis Medrash.
Oh, I mean learned or just simply influential?
Influential. She was the daughter of the Nasi, of the leader, so that's why she was.
Connected, but not necessarily learned.
It sounds like she was also learned.
Okay.
If she was. So now the wife mixes in. you don't want to send any greetings. She comes herself. Or at this point, Rav Nachman's wife had overheard the discussion, sent a message to Rav Nachman. Resolve his dispute and let him be on his way, so that he should not make you appear like a common ignoramus. He's making you look like an Amaretz. You're the leader over here. So now they basically remind themselves why Rabbi Yehuda is even there. He doesn't live there. He came because he was summoned there. Rav Nachman said to Rabbi Yehuda, "What brings Master here to Nehardea?" But this is funny because what do you mean? He doesn't know why he came? Rabbi Yehuda said to him, "Master sent me a subpoena." Reb Nachman said to him, "Now look, if I have not even learned to speak Master's language, that is, how to speak in the manner you advise, would I have the temerity to send the Master a subpoena?" So now he's being humble and saying, like, how could I even take you to Beis Din, to court, when you see how everything I do, you have a proof that it's not like this. Rabbi Yehuda took the subpoena from his chest, showed it to him, and said to him, "Here is the man, and here is the document." So he's like, "Here, I'm here. What do you want to do?" Realizing that his court had indeed summoned Rabbi Yehuda. Now it is possible Rav Nachman was very busy, and it could be that it just went to the court and he wasn't really aware of this whole thing.
Note 19 says he forgot.
It says he forgot. Rav Nachman said to him, "Since Master has already come here, like, by the way, you're here, let him state his case." And that is, speak in his defense about his differences with the Nehardea. Because again, it all started in the butcher shop. Because Rabbi Yehuda put this person he excommunicated this person, and this person is complaining to Rav Nachman, so that people will not say that the rabbis show favoritism to one another. Rav Nachman was concerned that if he automatically ruled in favor of Rabbi Yehuda and did not try the case properly, people might suspect rabbis of dismissing cases against each other without knowing whether they are right or wrong. So he says, okay, we'll have to take this seriously, at least for people to see that rabbis are not just... Yes. Reb Nachman began the questioning. He said to Rabbi Yehuda, "Why did Master place a ban upon the man the Nehardea?" Rabbi Yehuda responded, "Because he harassed an agent of the rabbis." And here we see Rabbi Yehuda was very humble. Instead of saying that he was speaking bad about me, calling me Yehuda bar Shaviskel, he's saying that he harassed an agent of the rabbis. He's putting it on the agent, saying that, as related above, the Nehardea had said to Rabbi Yehuda's agent, who is Yehuda bar Shaviskel, that he should precede me. Said Rav Nachman, "Then Master should have given him malchus. He should have given him lashes. For Rav would give malchus to one who harasses an agent of the rabbis."
What's the difference between malchus and makos?
That's a good question. What's the lamed? Makos just means when you hit someone. Malchus is probably the lashes of the Torah. That's usually...
Because the tractate's name
his
Makos,
name is
right?
Makos. I think Makos could be like it's more general.
Any punishment?
It includes more. Like if any person hits another person, you give him a Makkah. But Malchus is probably the word used in the Torah. But it's interesting because we're talking about a difference of letter and wording. So what's the difference between Makos and Malchus? So you have to look into that. So he says, "Why didn't you give him Malchus?" Rabbi Yehuda responded, "I dealt with him more stringently than that. That is, Rabbi Yehuda excommunicated him, which is a greater punishment than Malchus. Malchus, you get whipped and that's it. If you're in Cherem, that excommunication is a very harsh punishment. Because he judged that this was an exceptional situation that warranted a more stringent punishment than the norm." Reb Nachman then asked Rabbi Yehuda, "Why did Master proclaim that he was a slave?" Rabbi Yehuda answered him, "Because he habitually calls people slaves. And it was taught in a brisa, anyone who declares others to be genealogically unfit is himself unfit, and he never speaks in praise of others. And Shmuel said in reference to this brisa, it is with his own blemish that he declares others unfit. So because this person calls other people avodim, slaves, he himself must be an eved. Reb Nachman challenged Rabbi Yehuda, but say that Shmuel meant only that one is to suspect him of being unfit. Did he mean that this is to publicly proclaim that he is unfit? Does that have like the halachic ruling that you could actually call him an eved? So
It would change who could marry and
Yeah.
all sorts of other heavy stuff. It would change his children.
it's a very heavy thing. So that's why this person, he was going to his rabbi Reb Nachman and trying to save himself.
He's not only not Jewish anymore, he can be enslaved permanently.
So, yeah,
I
that
don't know,
would
if
be
you're excommunicated, you're Jewish?
you're still Jewish if you're excommunicated. An eved is worse than being excommunicated.
Excommunicated means you just can't attend services, right?
There's a bunch of things. It's more than services, but there's a lot of things that you can't do for the community. Like you would lose a lot of jobs also. It puts you in a bad situation where you're still Jewish. An eved is more severe because it makes a problem with your whole yichus and everything. In the meantime, so we have all these things going on. The wife gets involved, and now the person himself, the plaintiff, comes in. In the meantime, as Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nachman were discussing this issue, the plaintiff said to Rabbi Yehuda, so now the plaintiff, he walks into court and he says, "Me you called a slave when I am a descendant from the royal family of the Chashmonaim." He says, "I am from the Chashmonaim. How could you call me a slave?" Rabbi Yehuda said to him, "Thus said Shmuel, whoever says, I am a descendant from the family of a Chashmonaim is a slave." He says, "Look, you proved it. Thank you." He says, "You proved my point." Why is this? And here we see the unfortunate end of the Chashmonaim dynasty. Herod, who was a slave of the Chashmonaim, killed the entire Chashmonaim family and took the Hasmonean name for himself. Thus, anyone who claims to be a Chashmonai is in fact a descendant from a slave, and thus has the legal status of a slave. So he comes in there, he says, "I'm a descendant of Chashmonai." He says, "You just said about yourself that you're a slave." And by the way, some people explain this is why he thought he should be first in the butcher shop. Because he was a descendant of the Chashmonaim, the Chashmonaim were also Koyanim. They were also, a Koyan comes first. So he says, "Oh, I come first in the butcher shop. What's this person doing before me?" But really, it comes out that everything switched around, and really he is an Eved. So now, Reb Nachman tries to defend a little bit this person. Reb Nachman said to Rabbi Yehuda, "Does Master not agree with the following rule that Reb Abba said in the name of Reb Huna, who said in the name of Rav? Any Torah scholar who issues on page 164, any Torah scholar who issues a legal ruling regarding an actual incident and proceeds to say that it is supported by a lesson he heard from his teacher, the law is that if the scholar had taught this lesson to students before the current case was brought to his attention, we listen to him. That is, we accept that his teacher had indeed taught this lesson, and thus the ruling is valid. If you learned the halacha before, and then the case came up, then we listen to you. But over here, it's affecting you. This is part of your story. So all of a sudden you bring a halacha from Shmuel that anyone from the Chashmonaim is an Eved. How do we know? How could I trust you? Maybe you're saying that because this is better for your position, for your case. But if not, that is, if he did not teach the lesson in the name of his teacher, except after he ruled on the case brought before him, we do
Rabbi
not.
Shmuel made this statement, so supposedly Rabbi Nachman should also be aware of it.
So it seems from this whole Gemara that all these things Rabbi Yehuda was bringing to Rabbi Nachman's attention, and he was not aware of it. Because it is possible that he's teaching his lesson now only to support his ruling, but in fact his teacher had never said it. Hence, Rav Nachman argues, we are not bound to accept that which Rabbi Yehuda reported in the name of Shmuel, namely that whoever claims to be from the Chashmonaim is a slave, since Rabbi Yehuda had not taught this lesson in Shmuel's name previously.
So Reb Nachman is now calling Reb Shmuel a liar.
It doesn't necessarily mean a liar, but it means that if it's important for you, we can't trust it in the court. Which means if you'd say it any other day, we don't want to. Yeah. Saying we have to be careful. I'm saying we don't want to assume that Rabbi Yehuda made it up, but he's saying in halacha, in Beis Din, I don't know if I could accept that.
And this is oral, so you can't look it up.
Right? This is all, it wasn't transcribed.
But we didn't know that he was going to bring up the Chashmonai defense, so why would he bring it up earlier?
Yeah, only this guy, because he came in and said, I'm from Chashmonai, that's why he came up.
Yeah. Okay.
But still, there's still this rule that if the halacha was not said before, you can't just say the halacha right now because something came up to your own defense. Rabbi Yehuda answered, Rav Nachman, but there is a Rav Masna who holds as I do, that Shmuel did indeed say this. And now it's not only me, there's also Rav Masna that says this. Now here's an amazing part of the story. Rav Masna had not appeared in Nehardea for 13 years, but that very day he came to Nehardea. The day that Rav Masna is needed, he pops up right then when you need him. Rabbi Yehuda asked Rav Masna, does Master remember what Shmuel said when he was standing with one foot on the riverbank and one foot on the bridge? Do you remember what Shmuel said when he was standing in this funny position? I don't know why he was standing in that position, but some say that he was on his way to a boat. Rashi, some say that Mavra means a boat that crosses from one side of the river to the other. So now Rabbi Yehuda says, it's not only me, we have Rav Masna, he also remembers this. Rav Masna answered him, thus said Shmuel, whoever says I am a descendant from the royal family of the Chashmonaim is a slave, for no one remained from the Chashmonaim family, save for that one maiden who ascended to the roof and raised her voice, saying, whoever says I am a descendant from the family of the Chashmonaim is a slave. She then hurled herself from the roof and died. And the reason was because Herod, he saved her. He wanted to marry her, to have kids from the Chashmonaim, but she did not want to be his wife. And she, Rav Masna thus corroborated Rabbi Yehuda's claim that this ruling has been taught by Shmuel. Therefore, Rav Nachman accepted Rabbi Yehuda's ruling, and they proclaimed that the Nehardean was a slave. So after all the attempts that Rav Nachman tried to save this person, Rabbi Yehuda came in with proof time and time again, and Rabbi Yehuda in the end won this discussion, argument. That day, many kesubas were ripped up in Nehardea, because the Nehardean's descendants presumably had the status of slaves. Thus, if a woman from his family had married an ordinary Jew, the marriage would be invalid, for a marriage between a slave and an ordinary Jew does not take effect, so they must divorce, and the husband need not pay the ksuba. So this was not a good ending.
An ordinary Jew, as opposed to...
Which means an Eved could marry another Eved. That's fine, but an Eved is not allowed to marry a regular Yisrael.
Oh, are there children?
Avadim. They'll be Avadim. So this had a big effect. Now, people were...
Ex post facto, would those marriages be valid if they chose not to tear up the ketubah? Like if a Kohen marries a divorcee, the children are legit, even though it's illegal.
They would be, the children are called chalolim. They don't have the regular status of a Kohen.
No, they don't have the regular status of a Kohen, but they have the status of Jews.
Yes.
They're not mamzerim.
Right, an Eved is still Jewish. It could be a Jewish slave, but they have it's a different Eved.
So I'm curious. I don't know the law about women marrying a male Jewish slave, or a man marrying a female Jewish slave.
So the beginning of the chapter is 10 yuchsin, which means there's certain people's 10 categories within Jews, and some are only allowed to marry within a certain category.
This is a sidetrack, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's what the discussion here. So an Eved is not allowed to marry a Yisrael. That's
And
the
if they do, their children are halalim?
Nachalon. They would be Avadim. They would be considered, yeah.
At
So
some point, do they get to reconnect with the Jewish people?
so there is a way. It's a little bit complicated. I don't remember exactly how, but there is a way.
Like as I recall, like mamzerim who marry mamzerim, their children, it's after a certain number of generations, lose the status, right?
I think it continues unless there's someone that's not a mamzer. I think the way for a mamzer to become not a mamzer is if they marry an eved, then they lose the mamzer because they become like an eved. There's different ways.
Which is lower.
Well, in a way, yeah.
Okay.
It's complicated. So and now the people in Nehardea were very angry at Rabbi Yehuda now. When Rabbi Yehuda left, some residents of Nehardea followed him with intent to stone him, because he had exposed their ineligibility for marriage. Rabbi Yehuda said to them, "If you will be quiet, then be quiet. But if not, I will reveal what Shmuel said about you. That is, there are two families in Nehardea. One is called the family of Yonah, literally dove. One is called the family of Oravti, that is a raven. One is a kosher bird, one is not kosher bird. And your sign named after an impure bird, that is the raven which is not kosher, is impure, and the family named after a pure bird is the dove which is kosher, is pure." He's basically saying, I let out one secret, I exposed one family. If you don't want me to expose the whole Nehardea of what's going on with the yichus and the lineage over there, you better be quiet. So basically, Rabbi Yehuda's now, he's exposing a lot in Nehardea. Just by saying that, this is already saying that the yichus over there is not so clean. They cast those stones which they were going to throw at Rabbi Yehuda from their hands into the Malka River, and a blockage arose in the Malka River because the stones obstructed the flow of the water.
Well, this all sounds like allegory.
Yeah. Okay, so and this is the general story, what happened over here between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Nachman. But there's so many questions that we have. What was going on between them, between Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman?
This all sounds symbolic of other things.
Yeah.
Like Malka, it sounds like it's symbolic for other things.
Yes, there's a lot of secrets and things that are hidden in this Gemara, and we'll try to unlock some of it. Let's see what we can do here. So, I'll take some of these copies here. So first we'll take a look at these two cities of Nehardea and Pumbedisa, because that's how it all started. The story happened that the person from Nehardea came to the butcher shop in Pumbedisa, and that's where it all. So it's between the two cities. Our whole Gemara is really two different communities that are very different and have different rabbis and different ways of life in general. So Nehardea, if we look at it from a geographical position, Nehardea was a very big city, and it was a very commercial city, very cosmopolitan. It was next to the river, and there was a lot of people traveling, coming in, coming out. That's what Nehardea was. Pumbedisa, in a way, was more provincial. It was a little bit smaller. It was also near the river, but it was not the same size as Nehardea. Nehardea was like the center, the biggest city in Bavel. Now, the two rabbis there, we have Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda. Rav Nachman is in Nehardea, and Rav Yehuda is in Pumbedisa. And they both have yeshivas. Rav Nachman has a yeshiva in Nehardea, and Rav Yehuda has the yeshiva in Pumbedisa. Who's greater in Torah study? Rav Yehuda, right? Rav Yehuda is the greater Talmud Chacham. In Nehardea is more politically connected. They have Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman is the son-in-law of the Nasi, of the leader, and he's also a dayan, he's also a judge for the Reish Galusa of the exilarch. So let's learn a little bit about the city Nehardea. It's very interesting, where it says Rav Shrira Goin. So when did the Jewish people come to Bavel? How many years are they living in Bavel? He says like this: Demikara kad galu Yisrael begalus Yechania, in the exile of Yechania. Yeah, we say this in the Megillah. Asher Hegla, the Mordechai went in Hagoyla. Asher Hegla im Yechania Melech Yehuda, that the king of Yehuda Yechania went in exile with Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel. V'acharash v'hamasker v'kama neviim imaim, and a lot of prophets that came together, and they were exiled from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Aisinu leNehardea, and they brought them to Nehardea. So the Jewish people were living in Nehardea all the way from the exile, from the time that they were exiled from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Uvanu Yechania Melech Yehuda v'Sayata Beik Nishta. Now there was a huge shul, a Beik Nishta, a shul that was built in Nehardea. And what did they use to build the shul? Afar shehiviu imam mibeis hamikdash. They took earth from the Beis Hamikdash, the earth and stones from the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. They took it with them when they were exiled, and they built a shul using those same stones and same earth from the Beis Hamikdash. V'yasdua ba'avanim, and they established it with stones. Ulakayim aleim ashenemar. There's a pasuk that says, Ki ratzu avadecha es avaneha, that your servants desired the stones. Besafara yechinenu, and they had special grace to the earth of the Beis Hamikdash. And that shul had a very special name. V'karyu alahu beiknishta, they called that shul beiknishta deshaf v'yasef b'Nehardea. They called it the shul that moved and reestablished itself in Nehardea, which means they felt this was Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash just moved locations to Nehardea. Kolaimar shenasa Beis Hamikdash v'yashav kan, that the Beis Hamikdash traveled and it settled here. So Nehardea is a huge center. It's a very big place. This was kind of the Yerushalayim of Bavel. That's how big of a city it was. And the shul, it says about it, it was a very beautiful big shul, and they tried to make it as something similar to the Beis Hamikdash.
It says Kolomar Shenasa Beis Hamikdash. Where does it say that?
He's saying the words the Shaf v'Yasef, which means that it moved and settled. They were trying to say Koloimar, meaning to say.
Oh.
They called that shul the Shaf v'Yasef, the shul that moved and settled here. So now we have Shmuel. Shmuel was the leader, and when he passed away, Shachiv Shmuel b'shnas Tav Kuf Samach Daled. V'hava Talmidei. Who are the students of Shmuel? There was Rav Nachman ben Nehardea, Rav Yehuda b'Pumbedisa. There was Rav Nachman in Nehardea and Rav Yehuda in Pumbedisa. So both of them we see here are students of Shmuel. And that's why every time in our Gemara when he says, this is what Shmuel said, because he was the main Rosh Yeshiva before both of them, Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda. Now, what happened was, there was a very unfortunate ending to Nehardea. There was a king that came and destroyed the whole city of Nehardea. And eventually the yeshiva moved to Pumbedisa. That became the main center of learning. So Rav Yehuda really took over the center.
Did they massacre the Jews there, or did they leave and go?
It seems like that they killed a lot of Jews, and some of them fled to other places, were exiled. But there was a big destruction in Nehardea. So this just gives us an idea of the two places here, Nehardea and Pumbedisa. Nehardea, what we would call like the main Jewish place, the biggest center. And Pumbedisa was a little bit smaller in the sense, but in the end it turned around because Nehardea in the end was destroyed, and we saw over here all their yichus there was a big problem over there with their lineage. And Rabbi Yehuda eventually took over the biggest yeshiva in Pumbedisa. And now we can understand why there was a lot of tension, because Rav Nachman, he was in the center. He was in the biggest place where the Beis Hamikdash kind of was, And Rabbi Yehuda, he's the other Rosh Yeshiva in the other city in Pumbedisa. Now the question is, like, which yeshiva do you go to, or who's the main rabbi? Do you go to Rav Nachman or do you go to Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda was a greater scholar, Torah, Talmud Chacham. Rav Nachman was more connected to the exile arc and to leadership in Nehardea. Now, there was a bunch of things that we saw over here that Rav Nachman used a different language. So let's go into that a little bit. Now that we understand that Rav Nachman was coming from this aristocracy and this very royal family, so he was making some changes over here that Rabbi Yehuda didn't like. So the first thing was respect for Talmidei Chachamim. That was the first thing in discussion. Rabbi Yehuda felt that Reb Nachman himself was not giving himself enough respect. From the fact that he was building this fence, Rabbi Yehuda said, how do you expect that people should respect Torah scholars if you yourself are going around there, building a fence?
I thought he defended himself legitimately by saying it was
that he was doing it
in
the notes.
balcony fence, and that's a mitzvah you should do yourself instead of passing it off.
So it doesn't say that in the Gemara clearly, but that is a defense for him. But Rabbi Yehuda was saying...
The other one's not so much.
What Rabbi Yehuda was saying is that, what was the story in the butcher shop? This guy called Rabbi Yehuda Bar Shaviskel. He says, what do we see here? That the people in Nehardea do not have enough respect for Talmidei Chachamim. And he says, you know where that's coming from? It's coming from you yourself, because you yourself are not giving enough respect to yourself. Now, let's look about the things that he was offering Rabbi Yehuda. He says, sit on a karpita. It says that karpita is not a regular chair. It was more like a couch or a very, very comfortable type of chair. Most people don't eat an esrog on a regular day, or asparagus or anbegag, whatever these foods were. And Rabbi Yehuda was not just telling him about the words, but he was also admonishing the lifestyle, that you're having the luxuries. So that was another point of contention over there. The third thing is the place of woman in Jewish life, or in the yeshiva type of lifestyle. And it looks like in Nehardea, it was much more acceptable for women to be part of the scene, part of the, he says, come, my daughter, let's serve by, he felt that it was actually a nice thing that the woman should be part, and yes. And he says, why don't you send a greeting to my wife? But Rabbi Yehuda, he comes from a very reserved position. That he says, no, it's like we have to make very strong boundaries between men and women. We don't want there to be any connection or mixing up in any way. So that was another difference between Rav Nachman and Rabbi Yehuda's type of approach. And the fourth thing is really about the yichus. We see over here that there was a big, you could call it assimilation, or in Nehardea, they weren't as careful. That's what it seems like. It seems like in Pumbedisa, things were very clear. People knew who was who. In Nehardea, there's already more assimilation. And possibly we could explain that.
Fraternization.
Yes. And possibly it's because of how big the city was. We said it was a commercial city. There's a lot of people coming in, coming out. It was harder to keep track and to say exactly this is this person. There was much more fraternization or assimilation between the people. And it led to that this person who said that he came from Chashmonaim was really an Evet, which we see what happened over there, that there's already a mix-up. So these two types of cities could reflect a lot of different tzaddikim and their differences. Like we have Avraham and Yitzchak. Avraham was someone who was more welcoming, inviting people. Yitzchak was much more gevura. Or Yosef, he was the leader in Egypt. His brothers were shepherds. Or Moshe versus Aaron. Moshe was much more emes, truthful, staying to the... And Aaron was more like peaceful, welcoming. So these two types of Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda, we can see an example of this in history, many different tzaddikim that had these two different approaches. And even these days you have what we call Orthodox or modern Orthodox, or Orthodox versus Yeshivish. There's some people, everyone is keeping the Torah, but the question is there's certain things that are debatable if we should accept them or not. So these two positions of Nehardea and Pumbedisa, these two cities, are really reflected in, all the way till today in different communities. So let's go on the next page where it says Chidushei Agodos Maharsha. So here we'll get into the language, that he was using a different type of language. So Rabbi Yehuda said to Rav Nachman, do you despise the word Micah? Or he says either use the language of the rabbis or use the common language, where it says Amrele Misanya Micah. Is the word Micah, do you hate the word Micah? Or Misanya Safsol? So what was Rabbi Yehuda really saying? What was he hinting to? Bahani Hachi Kamar. This is what he was trying to tell Rav Nachman. He was sending him a hidden message. If you consider me as a Talmud Chacham, as a scholar, as a then you should speak to me in the language of rabbis. If you consider me like anyone else, like you and you summoned me to come to your court just like I'm any regular guy. So Rabbi Yehuda is taking an insult and offense from this. He's like, who do you think I am? Do you think I'm a rabbi, so speak to me like a rabbi? If you think like I'm any other person, so speak to me like that. Why are you speaking in a language that we're not accustomed to it? So what was happening here? He was using a third language. What is the third language? The third language is the language that was spoken in the family of the Reish Galusa, of the exilarch. That was the third language. And that's where Rabbi Yehuda was not happy about, because they felt that they were like a different category, a different class. Language is not only about what you say, but it represents, superiority.
Nachman was sending a message.
Yes.
I'm connected, you're not.
And Rabbi Yehuda was sending back a message. He says, don't put yourself into a third category. That's a third of Gaiva. That's what Shmuel said. Why did he say a third of Gaiva? Because you're using a third language. You're using a language which is not the rabbis and not the common people.
Not to mention he's 3 degrees removed from the Nasi.
3?
3.
How 3?
He's a son-in-law.
Uh-huh.
So Nasi, son-in-law.
Cool. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's the third.
So he's third removed from what I meant is he's third removed from the guy that he thinks he deserves. Because if it had been the
Nasi himself,
Reish Galisa who would come in, he'd use all those words, and Nachman and Nachman would be saying yes sir, whatever sir. But this boy, who do you think you are? You're
see, but then his wife mixes in. She's the second. She's the daughter.
She's the second.
She's the second.
But he wasn't using the language.
Right.
So.
So the Maharsha says that why do you think his daughter came in afterwards to serve? Why was he using this language? Because that's what his daughter understood. When he said bring the drink or whatever, he was saying it that way for his daughter to understand, because that was the third language that they spoke in the Reish Galusa in the exilarch's house.
And the wife coming in actually further dishonors him, because it's like, okay, you're too far removed from the Nasi to throw your weight around, but I'm second. She kind of steps into, in effect, save him and thereby weakens him.
So it's interesting, what was she trying to do? So one way was she was trying to get rid of him in one way. Other people say that she was saying give in to him, because really this was a tension of two leaders, and Rabbi Yehuda wanted really that he should be the real Rosh Yeshiva. And he was really showing Reb Nachman that Reb Nachman doesn't know as much, that he's not qualified. And his wife was saying, give in to him a little bit. But Reb Nachman doesn't really accept that.
This all happens from a based in, right? I mean, there's witnesses.
Yeah, this is a big story here. Now the Marsha, it gets more wild. We'll have to see how much we could do here. The Marsha says, why does he say three? Why is the third of Gaiva? V'oid yesh loymar, the second paragraph. Shahagaiva mischalekas legimel chalakim. That arrogance is divided into three parts. Ha'alef b'maisa. One type of arrogance is an arrogance of action. Again, heilig tough, of people that walk on their tippy toes or things like that.
Expect doors to open for them.
Yeah. Habez b'machshava. Another type of arrogance is in thought. B'daitay she'en kamayu. Someone thinks there's no one like me. Hagimel b'diburay. The third type of gaiva is in speech. Shemedaber gevaya, that you speak very haughty. V'zeh shehaisif be'esroinga. Why did he add the nun in the word esronga? Hanun midibur hagavaya. Nun represents speaking in a haughty language. Shahanun me'oisi is dalid tes lamed nun taf shehem kayach halashon. These letters, dalid tes lamed nun saf, come from the tongue. Shal yadai medaber g'dolei sugvaya. So when Nachman used the word esroinga, he added that nun, that extra nun. That nun represents the tongue, the speech. And Rabbi Yehuda said, you are a third of Gaiva. Rabbi Yehuda said, you are using your power of your tongue in a very haughty way. That's what, the sranga, using your tongue.
Slanga. Yeah, you could see the disdain, that's how you express disdain with your teeth, with your
Oh, so it's actually the tongue specifically. We'll see soon.
Okay.
And he was hinting to him that you have the third aspect of Gaiva. Not, he says, I see from the way you're speaking in a haughty way.
Remember that was in all these where you use your tongue, you end up showing your teeth at the same time.
So we'll get to the teeth soon. We're actually gonna
Right.
we're gonna go deeper into this. Why specifically the tongue over here? So this is an amazing explanation from the Baal HaFla. This is Rav Pinchas Horowitz, and he says like this: in the Hebrew letters, there's 5 points of articulation that we speak from in our mouth. The letters that are bold. The letters Aleph, Ches, Hey, Ayin come mehagarin. They come from the throat. Gich, those letters mehachech. They come from the palate. Dalates Lamed Nun Saf, we said comes from the tongue. Zayin Samach Shin Reish Tzadik, use your shinayim, your teeth. And Beis Vav Mem Pei come from Sfasayim, come from the lips. Now, if we look at the word esrog has every one of these 5 points of articulation. The aleph of esrog comes from the throat, the taf is from the tongue, reish is from the teeth, the vav of esrog is from the lips, and the gimel is from the palate, mehachech. So we have all 5 points of articulation in the word esrog. Now, these 5, we could split them into 3. There is the teeth and the lips. Those are more the physical part of the speech. They are connected to nefesh. Then there is the tongue. The tongue is inside. That's connected to ruach. And then the palate and the throat, those are connected to neshama. Those are the deeper parts of speech. And the tongue is right there in the middle, between the throat and the palate, and the lips and the teeth. So if we look at the word esrog, how many do we have from the tongue versus the other one? So if you look at it, Aleph Gimel is the throat and palate. That's thought. The Reish and Vav are the teeth and lips. And the Taf is the tongue. So how many letters does the Taf have? The Taf only has 1, which is, it's only a third of the other 2, because we're splitting the 5 parts of speech into 3. There's the ones that are more spiritual, machshava, that's the Aleph Gimel, the throat and the palate. Then you have the lips and the teeth, that's the action, the Reish Vav. So what's left with the tongue? Only 1 letter, the Taf. Now, if you add a nun to that, what happens if you add a nun? Now you're making the tongue to have more than what it has originally in the esrog. In the word esrog, you only have one letter representing the tongue. Now that you're adding esroinga, you're adding another nun, you're making the tongue greater. And he says, you're a third of gaiva. Why is it a third of gaiva? Because the tongue is only 1/3 of the other two parts of the mouth. The two parts of the mouth, which are in one category, the teeth and the lips, and the other category, the throat and the palate, the tongue is only 1/3. And by adding another nun, you're making the tongue even greater. So that's why he was specifically complaining about the esroinga, that nun. So this is interesting how this is all hinted in the word esrog. And now he adds another thing. It says there's different opinions about what the fruit of the tree of knowledge was, the fruit of the Eitz Hadas. There is an opinion that says that the fruit of the Eitz Hadas was an esrog. And if we do the gematria, Eitz Hadas is 639. If you take out Ra, if you minus 270 from 639, you get the same gematria as Eitz Hadar, a beautiful fruit, which is again 369. What was the problem of Adam Harishon? One of the things was, it says that he had some gaiva, he had some arrogance. And the word esrog is a Rosh Teves, al tevayeni regel gaiva. Do not bring me even to the foot, to the heel of gaiva. Do not give me any gaiva at all. So here we see another connection between esrog being humble, and Rabbi Yehuda was hinting to him, you're giving me an esrog, you have to be humble. Don't add a nun, don't be too haughty. And even a third dimension of it is also not good. Maybe we'll do one more minute. This is okay, maybe this might be a little bit too much to add over here, but we're talking about different parts of the mouth. So in Kabbalah, there's an idea of hevel, the breath, and shein is the teeth. It says that hevel, the breath that a person breathes, that's more like the light. And the teeth, the way you express it, it comes in different forms of speech. So that is shein. So we see over here that Reb Nachman and Reb Yehuda, if we look at where it says Reb Nachman, the word Nachman is gematria 148. The word hevel, it says in Kabbalah that there's 4 types of breath. So 4 times 37 is also 148. So Reb Nachman is connected very much to the idea of hevel, of breath, and also shein, teeth. Reb Nachman was always changing words. He was using the word shein in Hebrew also means shinoi, to cause a certain change. And that's what Reb Nachman was doing. He was always changing it up a little bit in the speech. But Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, he was very much into speaking very articulately in a way that there's no mistakes and there's no change. So it would be more like the tongue versus the breath and teeth. That's what we were talking about before, the different parts of the mouth, where Rabbi Yehuda is all about speaking very properly, very clearly, and Reb Nachman, there's more room for change, there's more differences. So what is the power of speech? Speech is about communication, about how you relate to others. And if we think about it in this way, all of these things that he was doing could have an effect on others, especially that he was the leader. So for example, building a mica, other people could look at it as disrespectful. So that's like speech, it communicates a not good message, a message which is not respectful. Eating in such a luxurious way other people could take from it not good things also, which means people might think that they have to spend a lot, even though for Nachman itself it wasn't anything bad, but it gives off a message that might not be good. Another thing is about the way Rav Nachman was relating to women. So Rav Nachman was a very holy person, and obviously for him it wasn't a problem. But Rabbi Yehuda was concerned with the situation in Nehardea, that people, if you don't put up the boundaries, people might get too involved in dealing with women and could come to not good results. And this ties back to what we spoke about Shmuel's ruling, that whoever says bad about other people, that reflects back to himself. And that's again the power of speech. Speech reveals a lot. So when you say something about someone else, that has the power to really reflect on what you really have within yourself. And that's what the message Rabbi Yehuda was sending to Reb Nachman, is that a leader, especially in your position, has to be very careful in what he does and his communication, the way people could learn from the leader. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda was telling him. So again, this is two very different approaches between Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Nachman is giving more room for change, more open in a way. And Rabbi Yehuda has the position of being very reserved, very careful, and sticking to the language, to the correct dibur. So there's something to learn from both sides. And this is an amazing story.
I just say cannot in relation to